there a tale, one that is fraught with woe and tomfoolery. I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to tell you a tale that you at least will be able to relate to if you have ever tried to do anything related to a veteran or a VA disability claim, rather. So here's the tale called, say, Johnny. In the service, Johnny breaks his leg. It sucks. Never a good thing to break your leg. And it gets mended in the best way that it can, but it's never really quite the same. And so after the service, Johnny files a disability claim and gets rated service-connected for chronic leg discomfort because his leg's just not the same. But not a huge rating. Maybe let's say 10, 30%, something like that. Over the years, so that's service connected. Good to go on that. Broke your leg, leg pain, chronic, they acknowledge that your leg issues are related to your service, and then they, as was part of the agreement, compensate you for that, for enduringly. Over the years, that chronic leg pain and leg discomfort and limited range of motion that stems directly to your leg break that happened while you were in service leads to some gait instability. And that means walking around can be imbalanced. It can look strange. It can feel strange. And it can lead to more complications. So your leg break has led to some gait instability. And that gait instability over the years, because you are nursing one half so much, your compensating side, your hip gets messed up as a result. And you need hip replacement surgery. And also your limited mobility and gait instability before the hip surgery has led to frequent falls, which leads to you hitting your head, getting concussions, and having like an ongoing head trauma vertigo issue. Just dizziness, falling, can't get up. And all of this is happening around the time of your hip replacement. This whole situation starts making you awfully downtrodden. And who can blame you? So you see somebody at the VA and you get diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And so along with your inability to work out now because of your hip replacement and your depression leads to some weight gain. And then you have heart disease, hypertension, and all the issues that go along with that. Let's say you get type 2 diabetes. Let's say that diabetes gets bad enough that it leads to you needing to get a foot amputated. And then the medication that you take, the antibiotics to keep that healing properly, gives you acid reflux, GERD, esophagitis, whatever. That was a fantastical tale, if you give a mouse a cookie sort of tale. But there is a basis in truth to say that all of those conditions, that long laundry list of no good, very bad things that Johnny is dealing with, would not have happened if not for that leg break, that service-connected leg break. And if that service-connected leg break is deemed, if that leg break is deemed to have been as a result of your service, and all of these other things happened, snowballed as a result of that, Johnny could be eligible for compensation through all the things that I listed after the leg break as a secondary condition. To gait instability, second to chronic leg pain, leg break. Hip replacement, secondary to. Frequent falls, secondary to, whatever. And a lot of these things I'm just kind of making up. But you get the point. If you give a mouse a cookie, a lot of things happen if you wouldn't have given the mouse the cookie. And so as veterans who are in the VA disability process, we need to understand that while we may be dealing with ailment A at our time of separation, ailment A may lead directly to ailment B and C. And in many cases, the VA is on the hook to compensate you for ailment B and C because they wouldn't exist without the service-connected one to begin with. And now, one of my very, very good friends, you've seen him on our live stream before, is going to speak much more eloquently and intelligently about all that. I give the give a mouse a cookie analogy. Yeah, he's going to be smarter than me about it. But happy to introduce my pal, Jim Brzezinski. What's up?
Hi, Adam.
Hi. I don't know how to change this so you're not bigger than me. Oh my gosh. Look at us. Look at us. New software, huh? Jim, what is new in the world of VA disability claims?
Well, there's lots new all the time, to be honest. Just more and more issues
There we go.
with the VA, and especially with something like the story that you just told. The
So is that
VA,
like super fantastical or not? Not
I
really.
mean, Johnny definitely had a rough go of it,
Yeah.
but it's not out of the question, uh, all the rules and the regulations make that claim possible, right? The the deal that vets got when they signed the on the dotted line and went and did what they had to do was that, whatever comes as a result of this, we will take care of you. And I think that, thank God I don't have any verifiable disabilities myself. My wife may,
They
disagree with
disagree.
that, but nothing diagnosed. But I've talked with enough disabled people through our Social Security and our VA to be able to understand that your disability that you have, even if it's only one thing that happened in the service, it's not like it's not out there on its own. Your body is all connected, right? I mean, it's very well known that your you said if you have an injury that alters your gait, you go up the line, all of your joints and stuff that is higher up, it affects every single one of them. I mean, even up into your back and your shoulders and your neck and all the
Right.
way up to your brain, even, with mental health. Uh, it's just something that happens, and I hear it all the time. Um, and a lot of vets just don't understand that. And
Right.
there are some secondary conditions that sort of make sense, right? Like I hurt my knee, and now I shouldn't say sort of make sense. They all make sense, but that are more obvious. I hurt my knee. Now that same hip is hurting because I've been limping around for the past, 10 years.
Those are the more obvious
Yeah,
connections. It's like if you have so you're saying if you have a service connected knee injury, then it is not far fetched to go back and say, now my hip's hurting me as a result
no,
and get a secondary rating for that.
right. Not far-fetched at all. In fact, logically, it makes perfect sense.
Hmm.
You see someone that's walking goofy on one side, and you're like, and they say my hip hurts, you're like, well, yeah, well, like look how you're walking, right? I mean,
Right.
it's something that's very visual, visible, very obvious.
Mm.
But there are a lot of other secondary conditions that aren't as obvious, right? Like
What
that.
are some of those?
Well, for example, a lot of vets come to me and they have um, high blood pressure or diabetes or um, heart disease or all of these things that are related to a sedentary lifestyle.
Mm.
And some of these things are kind of so major and affect the entire body's, like all of the body systems, that they're the most disabled people sometimes, right? Because it can be
Yeah, heart
serious.
like weight gain, heart
Right.
disease stuff is
Yeah,
no
heart
joke.
disease,
Yeah.
severe diabetes, all that stuff is very, very, it affects so much of what you're able to do. So,
Right.
um, but a lot of people don't make the connection that, I think you alluded to it, if not outright said it, but you have an injury and now it gets harder and harder to exercise. And on
Mm.
top of that, not only is it harder to exercise, it affects you mentally so that your motivation is hit. So not only is it harder because it hurts and it's physically harder, but now you've got your mental health affected by being disabled.
Right.
You lose motivation. It snowballs, right? And it's very, very easy for a doctor that knows what they're looking at to say, okay, well, look at this. You had this injury, you were in perfect shape, I mean, let's face it, most people, well, I shouldn't say most, all people in the military at one point were in probably the best shape of their life, right? Like
Yep.
you're,
Yeah.
you get through basic, you're a stud,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
pretty much. So you've got these people who have been in really, really great shape at one point in their life, and they're just tooling along. They could do amazing things with their bodies that the rest of us non-military folk could only dream of.
Especially the Air Force guys, right? Us
Yeah,
tough.
Air Force for sure,
Yeah, for sure.
from what I hear. But you've got these people who are very, very physically fit and are doing very strenuous activities and not having a problem with it. All of a sudden, boom, they're injured. You can't do what you used to do, whether it's work wise, whether it's fun wise. Maybe some people used to be in sports and they can't play their favorite sport anymore, or um, or I don't I don't know who these people are or why they do it, but like some people enjoy like working out as as a pastime, right? And they
Some
can't do
people
it anymore.
enjoy that.
That's that's I wish I had that type of I wish that was me, but anyways, you've got these people who used to be able to do a lot of things because they were in great shape. The military built their body to be the fighting machines that we need them to be, and feeling pretty good about yourself confidence wise, and then all of a sudden boom, you're injured. Okay, now I can't do the exercises. I can't play basketball like I used to. I can't play football. I can't do all these things, maybe can't even walk, right? Like
Mm.
that's
Hmm.
that's definitely something that can, and it's logical to think this, it starts to make people experience depression and anxiety and other types of mental health. So I'm getting at is like, the body, the systems are all connected. You've got one system that's going haywire. It's going to be, it's going to affect everything else that's going on. And the laws and the regulations are set up so that when that happens, if you get the proper medical evidence, which generally is going to include getting a medical opinion, because let's face it, the VA doesn't like to grant these things if they don't have to. You know, I've seen very few secondary conditions when we claim them just get granted on the first try. They want you to fight for it a little bit and prove
Can
it,
we
but
can we talk on that for a minute? So let's say I hurt my rotator cuff lifting something when I was in the military and I needed to have rotator cuff surgery. And my favorite thing in the entire world to do was racquetball. And now I can't, or pickleball is probably more fashionable now. I don't know. I like to hit balls with paddle things. But I can't do that anymore because the rotator cuff surgery and limited range of motion and blah, 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 blah. And so I'm service connected for the chronic shoulder pain, limited range of motion, blah, blah, blah. But now we're years down the road and I'm feeling thoroughly depressed and I get diagnosed as having major depressive disorder through my VA, through not primary care, through my psych team, but what are they? Counselor.
yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm diagnosed as having major depressive disorder, and a lot of it has to do with my loss of my love for pickleball / racquetball or whatever. If I just file an amendment as a secondary myself to the VA or try to do it through the app, you're saying probably slim chance that these secondary conditions they're not impossible. They're not really even that hard, but you need to work for them. Is that what you're saying?
A lot of times, yeah, you do. Um,
And then how would somebody go about doing that? So like let's say I have these things, I know I shouldn't file with the VA directly. What are some of the paths that I can take to add a secondary condition?
well, there's a couple of different things. Um, the first thing is if you've ever filed for it before, without realizing that it's secondary, like, a lot of veterans will have a mental health issue, depression, anxiety, PTSD, whatever it might be, and will file it with the VA, but they haven't really been able to tell why it's related to the military. You know what I mean? Like they know that they wouldn't have it without their service, but they can't point to an incident in service, or they can't point to. So a lot of people that come our way and we're like, hey, this, you should file this as secondary to your physical disability, because that's when the symptoms started getting worse. And
Mm.
you know um, a lot of them have already filed for mental health at one point, but really couldn't verbalize to the VA why they believe that it should be. They just said, well, I'm in the service, and getting out of the service was rough, and, and then the VA says, oh, okay, well, let me look. Were you in combat? Were you? And if the answer is no, if there's not something where they're like, you're in combat, you were in a hostile area where you would have a fear of a hostile enemy, reasonable fear, um, or you don't
Military
have an
sexual trauma.
actual, yeah, like there's no actual trauma that they can point to,
Right, right.
and you're not alleging an MST or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
They're just going to say, well, even though we see you're depressed, there's nothing in the military that we can link it to, right? Um, and
So like racquetball guy, right?
racquetball,
Racquetball,
yeah, right,
pickleball guy
yeah,
filed for the shoulder pain and limited range of motion and depression when he got out of the service, but
yeah.
was only granted for the shoulder pain, and the limited
Or
range of
maybe they
motion.
even did tell the psych guy that it's because of my inability to play racquetball or
Okay.
pickleball or whatever, um, pickle racquetball.
Yeah.
Then
Paddle ball hitting.
they may have even done that, where anybody who knows about their other disabilities would say, oh yeah, like, you can't play racquetball. Well, you have a service connected shoulder. You can't play racquetball because of that service connected shoulder. We should look at it secondary. Well, the VA is not really good at making those connections. It's like, it's kind of one of these situations where the right hand and the left hand don't know what the other one's doing, right? Because you might have the physical doctors that are treating your shoulder, and they're like, oh, we know this is service connected, we're going to do it all free of charge and this and that because it's part of their service. Well, then you're going to counseling and you're telling the counselor this and that, and you don't know that you're supposed to verbalize this chain of why I'm depressed,
Mm-hmm.
linking it back to your injury, even though you've said things that a logical person would say, okay, well, you can't play racquetball. You can't play racquetball because of your shoulder service connected. Like, those connections aren't often made just like on their own.
But you
But so
might be
anyways,
able to say that, I'm pretty sure I'm depressed because of my shoulder, but you wouldn't know necessarily the language of the VA, that secret
right. Or
covert
I've
language they
even
use.
seen it where they do say specifically it's related to my injury, and the mental health CMP did not notice that specific injury was actually service connected.
Mm-hmm.
So it all depends. Again, to start the claim, have you ever filed that claim before for another reason and been denied, um, or is it something brand new where you're just for the first time filing it? Because that really makes a difference on where you start.
Is it
Um,
easier if you already filed for it before and just couldn't connect the dots?
it's easier. Um, in respect to the form is shorter,
Okay.
because there's a 20 dash 0995, or is it 21? Whatever, it's a supplemental claim form.
Okay.
It's either 20 or 21 dash 0995. And if it's never been claimed, it's a 21 dash 526 EZ. And, that's basically a new claim form. Um, the the exciting thing is if you have filed it for it before, once we get into the case, we can look and see like how bad did they screw up the first time? Is it bad enough that I can say, okay, this is a Q, which CUE stands for clear and unmistakable error. And if it is, then you have an opportunity to get paid back all the way to when you first filed it, which is,
Yeah, then you're talking back pay.
that's talking back pay, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not unreasonable to think that the VA missed something their first time.
Right.
It's actually probably very likely.
Happens fairly frequently.
Yeah. Um, and so there's that. But if you've never filed for it before, you would allege it as a new condition. You'd want to tell them to look at it as a direct service connection and as a secondary. Tell them which issue is secondary, because you never know. There might actually be something in your military record that you forgot about, where they don't even have to take that secondary leap, and they say, "Oh yeah, look at you went and talked to a counselor one time when you were in the service," or
Right.
Stuff that you just haven't the vet hasn't thought about in such a long time that they don't even remember it. But so you always want to look at direct to see if there is a way, because it's generally easier, and the CMP examiners are more likely to give you a favorable opinion. But then allege it as secondary, and make sure you tell them why the secondary condition, or why the primary condition caused the secondary condition. And then you got to get into, okay, and my shoulder, I used to be able to play racquetball and pickleball and swim and pick up my girlfriend and carry her over the threshold when we got home, and I can't do any of that, because I see a lot of that's kind of, I know it's kind of funny, but I see a ton of depression when they can't live up to their significant other's expectations anymore.
Right. And
Um,
that's not like a small piddly little thing, and it's not a stretch, and it's
no,
not like,
not at all.
that's a very real thing, a chronic issue that will affect your life, physical, mental health
Yeah,
forever as a result of something that's service connected. You should probably be getting compensated for it. Like, don't be bashful about submitting these. But doing it yourself isn't always the best way to do it. Going through a VSO or using a firm like Jim's firm, Tabak Law, um, they know the language of the VA. Can you talk about what it is that like an establishment like yours, a firm like Tabak Law, what is it that you do that is a little deeper and a little more precise than maybe any other option, any other route that somebody might take
sure.
to getting this filed?
Well, like you said, we'll use the proper language so that the person who is reviewing the case knows, can connect the dots that we're trying to connect there, and will send the case through for a medical evaluation with the proper, you know, background for the medical examiner to be able to give an opinion. Because sometimes the medical examiners, they do exactly what the VA tells them to do, and and sometimes the VA didn't tell them to do the right thing. Sometimes the VA tells them to do the right thing and the medical examiner doesn't do the right thing. So at least, when it gets to that medical examiner, they'll have the language set up so that the medical examiner knows exactly what the what the claimant is alleging, what the VA wants to hear as far as
Mm-hmm.
an opinion. because these claims live and die based on that medical examiner's opinion. And an opinion, right? It's the way someone feels. It's not a fact. It's the way that they feel. So they could feel one way or another just based on how the language comes in, right? And you could change opinions too, right? By giving them the proper argument.
Right.
That's why it's called an opinion versus, I guess, a fact, right? So yeah, that's the first thing. The second thing is, we're there immediately if that opinion comes back incorrect, to go to our team of medical professionals, independent medical professionals, that we work with, that can review and say, hey, did this doctor give the right opinion or not? Sometimes the doctor gives the right opinion and the vet loses, and that's just the way it is, because we try and
Right.
Unfortunately it just the evidence isn't there. And we're not doctors, so sometimes we try things and we ask the doctors to tell us if we're right or wrong, and sometimes they tell us, no, it's not going to work. But what we'll have is we'll have our doctors available right away to review and say, number one, is that opinion the same as my opinion? And if it is, that's one thing. If it's not, okay, well, what did they do wrong? And here's what. And then they give their opinion, then we submit it to the VA. And now we've got our opinion that's competing against their opinion. And as you probably know, and most vets have heard, there's this standard of proof that the VA uses called the benefit of the doubt standard, right? Where vets are supposed to get the benefit of the doubt. And what the courts have said that means is that if you get a point where the evidence for and against your argument are equal, the veteran wins. So tie goes to the veteran.
Tie goes to the runner, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Every other legal case is different. If you tie in your personal injury case, you don't win. You have to have 51% to their 49%, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You have to be 51%.
You have to prove that it is at least equally as likely as it is not likely that connection is there.
That's right. That's the VA. At least as likely as not. Everything else is more
as
likely
as not.
Yeah.
Does not roll off the tongue. That's the VA for you.
That it is, right. Yeah. So, they got their opinion, we got our opinion, assuming our doctor, which we will make sure, has a good background and makes good arguments for their opinion. Our opinion should at least be as good as the VA's opinion. Generally, it's way better than the VA's opinion. So, then we're able to be there for that. And, the other thing about using a law firm versus VSOs is the VSOs, unfortunately, not to make it about money, but they don't have the resources to be putting out for their people's opinions. So
pay for like a team of independent medical professionals to substantiate.
Right. Yeah. And it's sad that you have to do that, and that's sort of a discussion for another day and whatever. Yeah. But it is what it is, and doctors don't work for free generally. And if you're with the VA for your treatment, they're not going to give you an opinion against another VA doctor. So if you're using the VA for your treatment and you go in and say, hey, this doctor said this, are you willing to say the opposite for me? They're not going to.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's an actual rule or an unwritten rule, or just this sort of like everybody knows it, but nobody wants to say it, that they're not allowed to do it. But
the bro code of the doctor.
Yes, right. Yeah. I've tried literally on thousands of cases to get the VA to give us an opinion, and like it's just not even worth it anymore. So so what we do is we've got our doctors, unfortunately it costs anywhere from $750 to $1,500 to get the doctor to sit down for an hour, review the file, give us their opinion. I shouldn't say.
And that's something that a firm like yours fronts. It's not like somebody has to pay out of pocket.
Right, and that's what I'm getting at. The resources. Yeah, we've got the resources and the partnerships set up with doctors that the VA has sort of accepted opinions from in the past. Mm-hmm. They're completely independent of us, so there's no, I don't know what the right word is. There's no conflict of interest or anything like that. Like, but yeah, we're set up to do that. And again, we can argue about how, or maybe it's not even an argument. We could talk about how crappy it is that vets have to do that. But, you know, we could talk about it all day long till you're blue in the face, but you still got to do it,
Still got to
right?
do it. Yeah.
And if the VA ever, I say this all the time, if the VA ever gets it figured out where my job is not needed, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Right?
That'll be a victory for the veteran.
Yes, I am really, really okay with it. I will gladly find something else to do. But unfortunately, we're not there right now. Got to do it because if we don't do it, nobody will. And
Right.
that's just how it is.
So, and the difference between filing for and taking advantage fully of these secondary conditions and not could be substantial.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if I, get hit by somebody throwing an elbow at PT one day and I break my nose and it ends up being a little off center forever, and the VA rates me 10% for that. Um, that's not a lot. 10% rating is 100 some odd bucks a month forever. It's better than a poke in the eye with a burnt stick, as my wife would say. But let's say that that dislocation, that uncentering, leads to sleep apnea, and you start having to sleep with a CPAP. That's a 50% rating right there. And
Right.
then that lack of sleep ends up totally draining you and leading to issues with depression and weight gain and blah blah. I mean, it's like it's a snowball effect. So all of a sudden, you could realistically, it's not unheard of or unrealistic to go from a 10% rating, and when you've taken the full scope of the effect of that 10% injury, you could go up to 100%.
That's right. I'll give you an example, and this is early in my career. There was a case I did not know what to do with. I didn't. I tried everything I could think of, and finally, I just said to the guy, "I'm like, okay, I actually tried to send this case back to a VSO like 3 or 4 times, but
Mm-hmm.
the guy kept begging me to keep the case. So I I'm definitely one where if somebody wants my help, I'm going to do it. And so I couldn't say no. I tried, but I was like, okay, I've done everything that I personally can do. I'm just going to send it off to a doctor, see what the doctor says. I don't really know where this is going to go. I'm going to pay for the doctor to just read the file, tell me what he thinks. And, um, I came back and the guy was very seriously disabled. We're talking heart disease, diabetes, mental health, needed his wife to be a caregiver. Like he was as far,
Sure.
down the path of being disabled as it can be.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then the only thing he had service connected was a planner's wart on his foot, for 10% for pain,
Oh,
basically.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so anyways, I sent it to the doctor, and the doctor looks at it and he's like, oh yeah, like all of this stuff we can get it service connected. And the theory for that one was all stemming from that planner's wart, which
Mm,
sounds insane, but when you talk to this guy, like you can't help but like just feel for him and his story. Because this planner's wart wasn't just like it was like a
the
golf ball
mother of all
sized thing
planners
in
warts.
his foot that
Ugh.
they cut out, and then there was this gaping hole, and it just was painful to walk. So
Eek.
this guy, he's got this wart. He actually was a very well paid person as a district manager for a large grocery chain down in the Chicago area,
Okay.
and um, was making 6 figures back in the 70s. Like he was doing really well, right? Like
Crushing
he
it.
was really good. Um, so he's doing that for several years, and his foot is just killing him to the point where he just literally cannot do it anymore. Like cannot be
Mm,
on his
mm.
feet. He had to walk the stores a lot on hard
Sure, I
tile
bet.
floor,
Yeah.
and I don't think shoes were as good as they are now
Right.
for air and support. There were
In the
no,
70s, they just used burlap sacks with their ties around them.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
Fine.
Um, so so he ended up leaving, used all the money he had saved to buy like a cab token in Chicago so he could run his own cab,
Sure.
basically.
Yeah.
Made a decent living, but being a cab driver, being on your butt all day, driving, stopping at gas stations to eat crap food, I mean, just over the years, put on weight and became depressed, and the snowball effect to the point where
Yeah,
he
yeah.
was literally so disabled he needed a full-time caregiver, which we
Wow.
were able to even get his wife, put on as that caregiver and paid by the VA. So, um, but yeah, it all stemmed from him having this
Planner's ward.
planner's wart,
Did he get up to
and
100%?
he did. I mean, it was a fight, but we got him there. He was very happy.
Oh, I'd imagine.
um, you know, and it's really sad when you talk to some of these vets,
Hmm.
because it's like they just have this feeling of like, I did this, I ruined my life for what happened, in the service.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
caught the wart because somebody else had it and they were showered, like whatever. He caught it while he was in the service and got this
Hmm.
wart. And, I guess probably the way warts work, I'm guessing a bunch of people got it because that's just you're in close
Right.
quarters with people. And, um, and most people probably was fine, right? And they probably just had it chopped off and went about their business, but he was unlucky.
Yeah.
And then it's like one of these where it's like, I did what I said I was going to do, and I'm so proud of my service, and I served my country. I did what I had to, and then this happened to me, and it wasn't my fault, and now my life is miserable, and I just need help, and I can't believe they would say no. And it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
those ones are it's really hard to not just fight to the end of whatever for, because um there's some that come in and they're just like whatever, and we like, we help everyone, but
Right.
every once in a while these people just like tell you their story, and you just, you know it sounds so crazy that you'd be like, oh, you had a planner's wart, now I'm going to give you 100%. And without really talking to this guy, maybe it still does sound crazy. I don't know.
Sure.
Maybe there's people who would say, okay, this system is really messed up if this can get 100% for a planner's wart. But you talk to these people and understand the profound, horrible, uh, effects that this thing had on their life, and then the to make it even worse, then not understanding how you said you were going to help them and now you won't.
Right. Right.
It's just like, and this dude was old school too, so it was like, when you have like kind of these tough old curmudgeons who are crying in your
I know the type.
office. Yeah, it's just like, it's one that, yeah, I just had to like, just had to do it. And I'm so
Yeah.
happy that I sent it off to the medical person. It changed my entire, it was, like I said, it was very early in my career. It was probably like one of my first 10 or 15 wins, I would say, when I
And
was
15
just,
plus years ago,
yeah.
and the rest is history. So
Because I'll tell
he
you,
went
I
from.
worked at the VA. I did.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know,
So you've seen firsthand
I've
how
seen
it works
firsthand
from
what
the
goes
other end.
on. Like I
Yeah.
was the one denying that case back,
Right.
in 2007 and 8. And I, just because of the work and I had something in my mind about like, I can't believe all these vets would come in here and try to say that their service caused diabetes and heart disease.
When you were
And
on the VA end, you
when
mean?
I was on the VA
Yeah.
side, yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't really get it. I didn't get trained right about it. I didn't have higher ups that were overly, uh, I don't know what the right word is, empathetical, sympathetical to those types of arguments.
Mm-hmm.
They felt that I had some that it seems like they felt like they were the guards of the purse,
Right.
and even though the law supports this. We have to tighten up or whatever. So I had sort of a mental block for a minute. Luckily, I got over it very early because of that win.
Yeah.
That
That must have been massive too, from 10 to 100%, and it probably took years.
it really was, and it was, and you know, the the satisfaction that came from,
Yeah, I bet.
and especially when I tried to you know, I don't like drop this case, like three
Yeah,
different
yeah.
times, and I had to I withdrew and I had to re-sign the paperwork and then withdrew
Oh,
and
wow.
re-sign the paperwork because he'd begged me and I'm like, oh, I don't know what to do with this case,
Yeah.
um,
That was fate just pushing you
and it
off
was
the
such a
cliff.
wild
Yeah.
outcome that I'd never even made that connection, but I never made that mistake again. Um,
Right.
and now when a service connected vet comes in with these systemic types of diseases that are
Mhm.
very clearly related to a sedentary lifestyle, we do
Mhm.
a thorough
Mhm.
analysis. You know, is this caused by your service connected issues one way or another? Did
Yeah.
you, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just the way that things shook out for them, right?
But if it is the like 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon or whatever it is,
Yeah,
then really important that y'all get compensated for what you're
yeah,
owed from the VA. Uh,
that's correct.
Jim, always awesome talking to you. Um, I did not look at the chat. Oh, what does Tabak Law do differently from other veteran firms that separates them? That's a good question. We had
Wow.
a question in the chat from Zach. What is Tabak Law? That is the firm at which Jim is the CEO, managing partner. What does Tabak Law do differently from other veteran law firms that separates them? And we'll answer that question. We'll call it.
That's a really great question. Because well, when I started, there wasn't a lot of veteran law firms, but now they're starting to
Mm-hmm.
pop up, and then you've got the claim consultants. Some people call them a different word, but I'm not going to use that word online because they'll sue
You
me.
start a war around here. That's a
But
conversation for another day.
yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people out there that will help a vet. Let's put it like that.
Yeah.
What sets us apart? What really sets us apart is that we will take any vet that asks for our help, and no matter what they come in asking for help with, assuming it's something that you can verbalize that it's a current disability and that it might be related to the service, we're going to work up the case the same as if it's someone who comes in with a case that we know is going to be $100,000 case. We take every case seriously and do a thorough investigation of it before we tell the vet that there's nothing there. Um,
So you
so
don't turn down a case. You don't say like, yeah, I mean, we don't do this isn't really going to make us a lot of money
that's
or
right.
you which a lot of firms do, which is I mean, they're prerogative, but they a lot of
That's right.
veterans get turned
And
away.
right. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's a business. We gotta Everyone's gotta feed their family, put food on the table, pay their employees. So I get it, but we've set our system up that we have found a way to be able to just help everyone. Anyone that comes in, we call it it's not an overly flashy term, but we've got our claim investigation department. What that means is you ask for help, we're going to take your case, we're going to get your file, we're going to look at the medical records, we're going to find everything that you have told us you want to claim and everything that you didn't even know you should be claiming, and we're going to get that stuff sent into the VA for you. We're not going to care if it's something that we get paid $10 on or even $0 on, because sometimes vets will come in and it's all new claims. The law doesn't allow for us to charge for new claims. There is an industry that does, but you're not supposed to. And then we, you know, we take the case and we're going to help. You want help? We can help. We will help. That's the only analysis that we put into who we're going to work with. In fact, the vast majority of our cases that we bring in are cases that other lawyers have turned down, and they say, hey, we can't help you, but we know Tabak Law will help you. So go talk to them. It's probably one of my favorite things about what we do is that these people who were hopeless about their case because the VA screwed them, they probably had a VSO that didn't do a great job. They went and talked to an attorney that said no. And then they come to us and we say yes.
Yeah.
And we overwhelmingly are helping them and winning their cases, because it's not that they have a bad case. That's generally not what's happening when they're getting turned down. It's not that they don't have a case where they can win. It's that when they win, there's not going to be enough back pay to make it worthwhile for the attorney.
For the other firms.
That's right.
And
that's why they're getting turned down
for,
by lawyers for the most part.
Your whole business model is built on business karma. Like,
that's right.
Let
me show you this. Let me show you this book I'm reading right now.
Okay.
I don't know if you can read it because it's going to be backwards, but it's called
Love
Frog as a Business Strategy.
There you go. That looks great.
Love that really is. Strategy. Like, I want to help people. I have people on my team that want to help people. I have people on my team that I've snagged from other veteran helping groups that were happy to come here because I told them that we'll help everyone. We'll help literally anyone that comes to us. I have one employee who he was working for another veteran law firm, and his own family member came in and asked if he could help him,
Yeah.
And he ran the case by the owner of the company, and the owner of the company said, no, you're not allowed to help your family member on.
Wow.
And could you imagine that?
Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah. Like I can't even, like, who would say that to a person?
Like, yeah. We're not going to make enough money off of grandma or grandpa and their claim from their service in Vietnam. So
I'll tell you what, I have a lot of family members that have asked for my help for my law firm. And I don't care if we never win that case because it can't be won. Like, we're going to help them.
You go for it.
Pride everything. Like, we're going to help them. We're going to leave no stone unturned. At the end of the day, if it ends up being that we lose, it's not because we didn't do, we've done everything for that person. And if any one of my employees has a family member that wants help, they don't even have to ask. Like, just sign the form, take it, help them. But yeah, it's just the thing that sets us apart is we help everyone. I don't care if I make $1 off of a case. I need to make money off of some cases or this whole system collapses, but it's not an analysis that I'm making when I'm deciding.
I just noticed that we got a question on LinkedIn too. So we'll answer that quick from Corrine. How many secondary conditions are you helping process with the passage of the PACT Act?
Oh, well, I would say just about every case we have has a secondary condition. I mean, the PACT Act made it so that, a couple of things. It added some presumptives.
And what is a presumptive?
A presumptive is like when the VA has enough evidence in their scientific database or whatever you want to call it. There's enough evidence where they can just say, hey, this happened to you. You have this disease. I don't even need a medical opinion. I'm just going to give it to you.
So like you were in Vietnam, you had confirmed Agent Orange exposure, and and then later you got X kind of cancer. They just assume that those two things are connected.
Because usually you'd have to prove exposure. So there's two presumptions in that case. There's, you were in Vietnam. I'm going to presume Agent Orange hit you at some point. You don't have to find and say, okay, I was in, I don't know. I was going to
They
say
presume the exposure, even if
yeah,
you
so
went
they
to
presume the
Vietnam.
exposure. You're in
Okay.
Vietnam. We presume that because you were in this area, you're now exposed to Agent Orange. And litigation over the years have expanded that, including the PACT Act.
Hmm.
Now it used to
Burn
be
pit.
just in the country of Vietnam. Then it got expanded to like the Blue Water, which is I want to say it's like, don't quote me on this because I don't have but I think it's like 12 nautical miles off of
Okay. Okay.
because of wind and the
Sure.
planes
Sure.
flying with it and all that
Yeah.
stuff um, and then parts of Korea, and there's a few other places
And
too,
then
but
expanded to
it expanded
Iraq,
the geography where they
Afghanistan,
say,
and
hey, we know enough stuff was sprayed there during this
mm,
period of
mhm.
time. You don't have to tell me where you were on what day and prove that you were exposed. We're just gonna say we're presuming you were exposed. So there's that presumption. Then there's the next presumption that says, okay, well, now if we have enough studies that Agent Orange is linked to these conditions, diabetes, coronary artery disease, high blood pressure, um, a lot of other
Cancer,
things,
prostate cancer, something like that.
prostate cancer, bladder
Yeah.
cancer, like
Yeah.
there's
Prostate bladder cancer.
a lot of cancers.
Progressive
Agent Orange was a
supranuclear
bad,
palsy.
yeah,
And yeah.
exactly. It was some bad stuff, right? Like,
Yeah. Best stuff.
so there's two presumptions. One, yes, if you were here, you were exposed. Two, if you're exposed and you have this, it's related. You don't need to prove you were exposed. You don't need to prove that it's related. It's just, so a lot of times with those cases, they just say, okay, um, where were you stationed at what time? Does it fall within our group of
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
um, where we say we had this exposure? And then do you have the disease? That's the only two questions. If you say yes, boom, you get it.
And you don't have to prove that connection.
That's right.
So,
Um,
so those presumptives, the list of presumptive conditions and exposures, is greatly expanded by the PACT Act. Is that correct?
It was. It also expanded, presumptions to some Gulf War things because
Right. Right.
the Gulf War has really been really hard to prove stuff was
Mm,
related
sure.
historically until the PACT Act. Um, because I'm just like pulling up my PACT Act notes because I want to make sure that I don't give the wrong things here. But in the past, you had to prove to get anything service connected, it was the goofiest analysis. You had to prove that this person had an unexplained illness, right? Like,
Mm,
what does that mean? That means something's wrong with you, but we don't know what it is. So guess what? If you get a diagnosis, well, we know what it is.
right.
So
Right.
like, oh, you have arm pain. Sometimes the doctors don't feel comfortable not giving a diagnosis. We're going to say arthritis of your arm, right?
Right. Right. And then
Well,
then
guess
it's
what?
not unexplained, so you
Now we know
couldn't
what it
make.
is. Yeah.
Got it.
So it made things really really goofy, and um, you know they they have so and then there's like the fibromyalgias and the chronic
Mm, mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
fatigue syndrome and all that stuff. So um, it made it a little easier to do that. It also made it easier to. The other thing that they did was um, the Terra. Have you ever heard of Terra? That's like I don't know what it stands for, but they do a Terra analysis on every case now to look at what harmful chemicals you may have been
Right.
exposed to.
Right.
Toxic exposure risk activity is Terra.
Okay.
Um, so what it's doing is they're saying, okay, what was your MOS? Where were you? What's your job? Where were you? Were you exposed to chemicals because of where you were? Were you exposed to chemicals because of your job? Were you on the flight deck and you're inhaling fumes from uh, jet fuel and all this stuff? Um, you know, you used to have to just get the vet to tell you what they were exposed to. But now they'll do a Terra exposure on pretty much every case to say, we know you did this. You probably used this. Let's say you were a laundry person on a ship. You used all these laundry chemicals. And
Right.
which pretty much every chemical it seems like the military uses is really bad for you. I don't know if that's just chemicals in general or if the military is just like really great at picking things that cause really horrible, debilitating diseases, or like
And sometimes the chemicals are just like the drinking water on base.
Yes, right, exactly.
You could start a fire with.
It's not funny, but
flammable.
it's like
yeah. You gotta laugh or you'll cry.
You laugh because it's true, right? Like it's one of those where it's like it's like a definite like WTF type of thing. But
we're up against it here, so I'm gonna. I said before we went on, I said we could talk extemporaneously about this stuff for hours and hours and hours, and here we are.
I don't know if there's a way to get that person my contact info, but if they would like a more specific answer, because I feel like I meandered there a little bit, but
it's what we do. We meander a bit. I'll follow up with I think it was Corrine, and see if that was a satisfactory answer, and if not, we'll yeah.
But the PACT Act was great for especially for Gulf War and chemical exposure. It made it a lot easier.
Big time. All right, hang on the line here for a minute there. Oh, that's you. My goodness, I'm still figuring this out. All right, there we go. Hang on the line for a minute there, Jim. There you have it, folks. Today we discussed secondary conditions, and then we went into presumptive conditions a bit as well. I'm going to have to split this up into 2 episodes when I repackage this, because there's just jam-packed with a lot of good stuff for everybody that was hanging in there the whole time. Golly, thanks for joining us for a full hour. And if you have any follow-up questions or questions that I didn't see in the little chat thingy, please drop us a line, either through my LinkedIn or through VetLine or through Tabak Law. We are happy to clarify. And yeah, everybody stay warm. I think spring is upon us soon, I hope. See you next time.